Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, I am very honored to welcome a remarkable person, Norman McNamara, the founder of Purple Angel. Welcome, Norms. How are you today?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you, Lance, and thank you for asking me to be here today.
Our pleasure. Well, you know, Norms, you're doing such tremendous work over in the UK, but now in like 50 other countries with the Purple Angel Foundation. What exactly prompted you to create this tremendous organization?
Well, when I was first diagnosed, I was told by my consultant to either use it or lose it. And that was it. I was told bye-bye and nothing else. And if it wasn't for having a wife who was a carer or a caregiver, as you say in America, for over 30 years, who knew her way around the system, we would have been lost. So I thought, well, what about all those other people that's been lost? What about the people that aren't as lucky as me, that don't live with a caregiver, you know, who did it as a professional job? And then the crux of it came when I walked into a shop one day and I was having trouble with my notes, my £5, £10 notes, English currency. And I said to the guy behind the counter, because I've never been ashamed of having dementia, I said, I'm sorry. I said, but I'll be with you in a minute. I said, just having a moment. I've got dementia. And he laughed. And not only did he laugh, the whole shop laughed because there was a large queue. And I thought, hang on a minute. If I'd have said I had stage 4 cancer, would he have laughed then? Not at all. So I put what I was buying down. He apologised and said, I'm sorry, I didn't think. And I said, no, you never really do you? I walked out and I said to my wife that day, we need to do something about this because it can't go on. People can't laugh at you if you have an illness. You know, they won't laugh if it was cancer or anything else. You know, so we formed what we called the Torbay Dementia Action Alliance. We contacted the organisations like the medical people, the police, the hospitals, and said, we want to do something about this. And when we did, we were absolutely amazed at how many people contacted us because nobody had actually said, hey, hang on a minute. This is not good enough. This has gone on for long enough now. We need to do something. We need to act to change things so people accept us for, you know, for who we are. So we organised about 15, 16 of us at the town centre, and I wrote a poster with about 12 bullet points on it saying how to react to people with dementia when they come into the shops. And that was all. And that day, we did over 200 shops, and over 200, and all bar one said yes. And they all said, why has nobody ever done this before? Why has nobody actually come in face to face and spoken to us? And I said, I don't know, but it's taken a person with dementia to do it. And that day, we knew we'd done something right. And it all started from there, Lance.
As a person, you know, how old were you, Norms, when you were diagnosed?
I was 50.
You were 50.
Yeah.
That's a young man.
It is. But through what I've learned, I lost my grandmother to dementia, and I lost my father to dementia, but I also lost a relative who was only 36. The biggest mistake that people make is thinking dementia only affects you when you get older.
Right.
We have children who died of what they call Batten's disease, which is childhood dementia. dementia can strike anytime, anywhere.
Right.
It's not just, I don't want to frighten people,
right.
but it can happen anytime, anywhere, any age. And I think we've got to get our heads around this.
Right. And you're absolutely right. And, you can have early onset, and, they're now making more discoveries in childhood related dementias or types of dementias. But when I say you're a young man, when you were 49 years old, you probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Norms, but you probably weren't thinking, I might get dementia, or, it's not something we really think about.
No, it's not. Even though it was in the family, even though my grandmother died and my father died of it, it didn't mean to say, it never registered with me that it might happen to me. Yeah. It's not something I ever thought about.
Right.
But it wasn't until I'd been up north of the country and seen family and seen my mum when she was still alive then. And I came back, and a week later I said to Elaine, where did we go and see my mum? And she said, we've just come back. And I had no memory of it whatsoever. And Elaine said, there's something wrong here. And there was a couple of things that made the alarm bell rings. And when you've been married for as long as I have, when your wife said you need to see a doctor, then you need to see a doctor.
Yeah. So as a 50-year-old man, and your wife is starting to notice things, and, you're probably starting to realize something's not right, and you get that diagnosis, and I'm going somewhere with this. That's why I'm kind of sticking here for a minute. And the doctor comes in and says, Norms, Mrs. McNamara, I have some bad news. We feel like you have dementia. What kind of help and support were you able to get at that point?
Very little. Very little. I mean, we're talking, even though we're only talking 16 years ago now, there was some help out there via a couple of organisations, but very little. And what wasn't out there was what really does happen when you get dementia.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to talk about it. They didn't talk about the hallucinations. They didn't talk about the incontinence.
Yeah.
They didn't talk about things like all the bad things about it. Then they just thought, it's just all about losing memory. But we know so much more now that it's not about losing memory. Dementia is nothing like losing memory. It's about losing your life skills.
Right.
How to pick a knife and fork up. How to drive a car. What do you do when you've got the keys in your hand and you can drive, but you don't know what to do with those keys because that little bit's gone.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. Absolutely devastating.
How long was it from the time you got the diagnosis till you went in and saw that shopkeeper?
I'd say it was only about 9 months.
Yeah.
It was only about 9 months. I got diagnosed quite quickly. I think because one, I had a great doctor, and two, they sent me straight through what they call a PET scan, straight away, more or less. And then I got all the scans on my brain and things like that. And then they confirmed it was dementia. So it was only about 9 months after. So I was still a bit raw when this guy left.
Yeah.
And I was still a bit tender about actually having it, even though,
Did you think it might not be true, or were you in denial, or were you questioning if it was right?
Oh my goodness me, yeah. If I had a magic wand, I mean, I always say I'm like a typical bloke, typical man. Any bad news and I switch off, it just switches off, right? So when he actually told me, my wife put me in the car and took her to a local cafe where we go, and said, "Have you any idea what he's just said to you?" And I said, "No, because he didn't go in at all." And she had to sit and talk to me and explain what had just been said. And then from that moment, for days, I was horrible. I was awful. I threw my toys at the pram. I was temperamental. I was, why me? Why me? It can't be. I'm only 50. I went through all those emotions, and I've never hidden that. And I explained that to people because I like to think that they know then that it's perfectly normal to go through them kind of emotions.
Right. And
I was horrible to live with for about 3 months.
Yeah.
And if I could turn back time now, I'd say, well, have a word with yourself.
Yeah.
Because you were very selfish.
Yeah, but I think also, and I don't know what your wife would say, but I would think that's okay that you were selfish and that you were going through that, because I think it helps you get to the next stage of, of being able to accept it. So you go into this shop 9 months later, you're still 50, 51 years old, and the man, kind of shuns you in a way, very disrespectful, because he's uneducated. He doesn't know any better, but regardless, like you said, if it was cancer, you wouldn't treat somebody that way. And you walk out of that shop and you decide what?
I walked out of that shop and I decided that things had to change. People had to look at dementia differently. And I thought, so I came home, I sat down with my wife, and remembering that she's been a caregiver for 30 years as a professional caregiver. And I said, what can we do about this? And she said, well, we can start something up like a community group or something like that. So we came up with the name Torbay Dementia Action Alliance, because we were all about action, about taking it forward and making it happen as quick as we could. And that's exactly what we did. We became a community group. We contacted all the doctors, all the hospitals, the police, people like that, and said, listen, this is what we're doing. This is the information we've got, and this is what we want to do. And it was great. We had a great response. We had a massive meeting. There must have been 50, 60 people turned up on the first meeting. And the funny thing was, at the end of it, they said, well, we need to do some printing now, and we need to do some of this and some of that. Where's the money? And not one of us had thought about that. And we hadn't got a penny. So somebody got an old fruit bowl and put it in the middle of the room, and we all donated in the fruit bowl. And that's how we started all those years ago, just by people taking money out of the pocket and going like that. Yeah. And that paid for the paper and the poster that I wrote to take into the shops. And then we started raising funds from there. But that's how we very first started. It was very humble beginnings.
Yeah, yeah. And when you decided to start Purple Angel, I'm thinking of it as a husband and wife's situation. Your wife is obviously probably going through some emotional and difficult times because again, you're a young man still, and you still are today. 66 is not old by any means. Did she encourage you doing this, or was she concerned that maybe it would be too much for you and she wanted to have more time with you? Was she, you know what I mean?
That's a good question. It's a great question. At the beginning, it was all encouragement. Because even my doctor, my consultant said it will keep your brain busy. And if I can concentrate on certain things and carry on working on certain things, or working on the computer and things like that, everything helps to keep your brain going. But as time's gone on and my illness has gone worse, she does worry that even though I said I've stepped back, she does worry that I haven't stepped back enough.
Sure.
Because I do get considerably worse as the day goes on and things like that. The night times are horrendous. So I have stepped back. I don't do as much. I don't travel around the country like I used to do. But I don't think I need to do now because we've got Zoom. Yeah,
right.
And we can do this all over the world. I don't have to leave the comfort of my own house.
Yeah.
So.
Do you and your wife have children, Norms?
We do, yeah. Yeah, we have children and quite a lot of grandchildren.
Wonderful. How at 50 years old, I'm thinking when I turn 50, I have a little ways to go yet, but my kids will still be living at home. They're going to still be minors. How?
Yeah, I was all left home because we were very young.
Okay.
So they'd all grown up and left home and had children themselves.
Yeah.
We were very young grandparents. And I'm pleased to say, though, because it's the most amazing thing being a grandparent. Best job I've ever had, being a granddad. Best job I've ever had.
That's what I hear all the time. They say having kids is wonderful, but having grandkids are even better.
Oh yeah, best job I've ever had anyway. And obviously we because I've never been shy or of coming forward in that. It wasn't a case of not telling them. It was a case of how to tell them.
Yeah.
So we sat up long into the night, lots of tears, lots of discussions, putting all our business in order, first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then we did like the bank and the lasting power of attorney and things like that, which is so important to do, and I would advise anybody to do it. And then obviously we had to tell our children, and when we told them, you see, kids get it. Kids get it. You know, they understand more than what adults do.
Right.
You know, I've told my children, I've spoken in schools and colleges and things like that. And, you know, and I've said to the kids, you know, some people actually think you can catch this. They really do think it's contagious. And the kids say, give over. No, they don't. And I said, they do. No, they don't. You're telling lies because they get it. So it's easier telling the children than it was telling my mum.
Wow.
Because my mum was an older person. You know, she lost my dad through dementia.
She had lived it.
A mother through dementia. So it was harder telling my mother, because she was alive then, than it was the kids. But as the grandchildren's grown up, and as they're still growing up now, because we have quite a few, they all know I've got dementia. And they all say, well, when, you know, if you start to forget us, we won't forget you. Because you still have a granddad.
Yeah.
Because the other day, I sat four of them down and told them a story of a friend of mine whose wife had dementia and she was in late stages. And she had no idea who he was. But he went every day to see her and he had Sunday lunch with her. And somebody said to him, why do you go every day? She's no idea who you are. He said, she might not know who I am, but I know who she is. She's my wife. She might have forgotten me, but I haven't forgotten her. And that's what I told the kids. So the kids now understand that if that awful, I dread it, that there'll come a time where I can't remember them. But if I can't, then at least I taught them to, at least they can still remember me. Because I'm still the granddad regardless.
Yeah. You know, I want to talk more about Purple Angel, but before we do, just a couple other questions about the family and you, Norm. Your father passed away and had dementia.
Yeah.
You have now been diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
Do your kids, or maybe the grandkids aren't old enough yet, I don't know, but are they now concerned? Well, you know what? Great grandpa had it. Grandpa has it. Dad has it. Are they, I mean, how are they coping with that, or do they really give it thought?
They have asked us about this, and they said, do we need to go and have a test, or, you know, things like that. And I've always said the same thing. I think somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere in the United States, there was some research done saying that there's a big possibility it could be hereditary. But the British Health Association has also done research and said, no, it's not. So I've kind of said to the kids, up to now, there is no proof as such that it is hereditary.
Right.
It's just coincidence.
Yeah.
And I think that's eased the mind a little bit.
Yeah, I believe there are genetic markers. There's genetic testing that can increase your likelihood of getting it. I don't know if anybody has said it's a definitive you will have it if dad had it and you have the same genetic marker. But that, you know, that leads to other interesting conversations too. Do you want to get the genetic testing? And if they say, if you have this, you will get that, you know, people, you know, that could lead to a very traumatic, you know, life for people.
It certainly could, and it would be a choice thing.
Right. Yeah.
It would be a choice thing, yeah. I mean, I think it was the Fisher Foundation in the United States. I used to write for them years ago. And it was the Fisher Foundation years ago that first came up with this research, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
But you go to the British Medical Health Association, they say no. Yeah. So, you know, I try and reassure them as much as I can.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
You know.
So Purple Heart, you know, you started in Purple Angel. I'm sorry, I apologize. You guys, you know, started off with just kind of taking a collection of money that's in your pockets, but without spoiling the surprise, how many countries is Purple Angel now in, Norm?
No, it's now in 65 countries plus.
65 countries. That's
Yeah, plus it's mind blowing. And people say to me, "Have you ever actually sat there and thought about it?" And I said, "Probably not, no, because it would frighten me to death."
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's
uh,
Are your kids involved in the organization?
they're not. Do you know? Some of them are.
Mhm.
Some of them are interested. Some of them are still only kids.
Yeah.
You know, as in teenagers and a bit younger. The elder ones, I'm almost sure that some of our children think we just run a memory cafe and that's all we do. You know, but I think over the last couple of years, because when it came international, and they said, "Well, what are you doing today, Grandad?" I said, "Oh, I'm talking to a friend of mine from America who's got a talk show in America." And then one of my children went to school and says, "My granddad organises rock concerts all over the world," which is which is World Rock Against Dementia, you know. So I
Yes.
think they kind of get it, but
Sure.
I don't think that they really do keep my feet on the ground. They
Wonderful.
keep me grounded, and I'm really happy they do.
You know,
Uh,
yeah, but that's the thing, Purple Angel, it's not just you're not just doing one specific thing. You're doing all kinds of support services and talks, educational events. Why don't you explain to our viewers and listeners, how do you describe Purple Angel to somebody that has no idea what it is?
the Purple Arrow organisation is an advisory organisation to give advice on dementia and any type of dementia. It's also totally free. Anything we do is totally, every one of us is a volunteer, and they keep that ethos all over the world as well. So every one of us who's a Purple Angel ambassador, which you can become anytime you want, works for free and just volunteers because we care. There are lots of people, without naming names, in your country and this country, who have big office blocks, call themselves dementia organisations. They've got chief execs with eye-watering salaries, but I won't get into that because it's not really professional, but we don't. That's the difference between the Purple Angel campaign and the others. We don't get paid for anything we do. And we work so hard to fundraise up and down the country or around the world, But the thing is, what you raise in your country or in your town stays in your town.
Wonderful.
That's the thing. Now, we have ambassadors all over this country who run memory cafes and things like that. And if they raise funds, it doesn't go into one pot. It stays in their town to look after their local people. And that's what separates us from anybody else in the UK and the world.
That's beautiful. What was your job before all of this?
I was a comedian.
No kidding.
No, I wasn't. No.
Okay, well, you should have been.
I always say that. No, I was a manager. I managed, what would you call it? B&Q?
Bakery. Okay.
No, B&Q.
Oh, a B&Q?
Hardware store.
Oh, a hardware store. Okay.
Yeah. A big,
okay.
huge hardware store.
But the reason I'm asking it, because you really structured this like a wonderful corporation, and it's refreshing to hear. And it's just beautiful where, Purple Angel, I think part of the success, not only because of your determination and passion, but you just said it, if all these different locations of Purple Angel all over the world now, 65 plus countries, they're raising funds, but those funds don't leave their community. They're not all going to the headquarters. They're staying right there locally. So, exactly. And that's the way it should be. That's wonderful.
Well, I agree. And there's lots of people. I think the reason why we do very well with fundraising in Torquay, which is part of the country where I live, in Devon, I think is because that's exactly why. Because what we raise goes on people within that county, within that town, within that city, within a radius. The MP3s is a different story, obviously. That goes all over the UK. But the money we raise for the Purple Angel stays for local people, for the local memory cafe. We take people out on days out. We take them on coach trips. We take them on steam trains, the old steam trains, and they don't pay for anything because all the money that we're given goes back to those families with dementia and those people with dementia. And that's the reason why, I think that's the reason why we do so well with fundraising, because nobody else does that.
Yeah. No, that's tremendous. Have you gotten any, feedback from, say, maybe the royal family on any of the work you've done?
I've met a few. Yeah, I've met the king.
Wow.
King Charles. It's not that long ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I met him a few months ago. I met Queen Camilla. I've met Prince Edward. He came to our memory cafe, the
Wow.
Purple Angel Memory Cafe. Yeah, and I had lunch in Downing Street with the Prime Minister,
Which prime minister?
David Cameron.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah, he's now Lord Cameron, I think now.
Yeah.
But yeah, this journey's taken me to Buckingham Palace. It's taken me to Downing Street, and it's the passion that takes me there, And I think when people realise, like we've just discussed, that we all do it for nothing.
Right.
It's not for gain. It's not for the pat on the back.
Yeah.
It's not for the well dones. It's to see people coming back to us saying that really helped.
Yeah.
And I have a saying that I coined, that I believe that to help people that you will never actually even meet is one of the greatest gifts of all.
Right. I fully agree, Norms. I just, we do this show because, COVID here in our state, in the United States, every state had different, regulations and did things a little bit differently, some similarly. We were going all over our state doing support groups and educational talks, and again, for free, not receiving anything through our company. And about a week before our state was shut down, we decided to stop all of our community events, which really, really upset me because I enjoy going out and helping people and meeting people. And so a week later, our governor shut us down for a 2-week period. Well, that 2 weeks turned into, almost 3 years or whatever.
Yeah,
And I said, well, while we're shut down, first it was 2 weeks and another 2 weeks. I said, well, let's start a podcast for a little while, not realizing it was going to turn into several, few years. And, then I realized we're reaching multitudes of people that we otherwise wouldn't be able to reach or touch. Like, doing this show, this isn't my day job. I do this more as a passion. But getting to, make friends with you and another good friend of ours, Jennifer, Dr. Jennifer Butte.
Jennifer Butte, lawyer,
just a beautiful person. Beautiful.
She's lovely.
Yeah. And, we're all on the same mission. We're trying to help people, and we're going to all help people that we probably will never even know that we have helped, and it's just, I don't think there's any greater reward.
I don't. I think there's no greater reward than that. When Laurie LeBay first contacted me, she'd never heard of memory cafes. And I don't think the USA, or they just very early days.
Yeah.
And she said, well, what are they all about? And I said, well, I'll send you all the information then, Laurie. And she said, how much? And I said, well, nothing. Why? And she said, oh, we don't work like that in the States.
Not all.
How much is it going to cost, and, legalities.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you've nothing to worry about. I will send you all the information totally free. And there was me and two other gentlemen who's sadly passed away since. And we sent all the information, and she opened the very first one in Minnesota, I think it was.
Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe now there's over 2,500 memory cafes in America. I'm not saying that's because we sent it to Laurie and it spread, but we sent the information over to Laurie. She shared it because that's what we believe in, sharing information for free. And what she's done, she shared it, and they've copied the Purple Angel ethos, but they've done it their way, which is brilliant. Yeah. Because in the UK we have memory cafes, but every memory cafe is different.
Right.
Because every local is different. They do things differently 10 miles down the road. They even speak differently 10 miles down the road than what we do. So, but everybody does it differently, but it's under the same ethos, which is basically just to help as many as possible through this. I don't like to call it a journey. It sounds very X Factor.
Yeah.
Through these times,
Right, absolutely. Speaking of the way people talk, Norms, I got to ask you and settle this dispute. Do I have the accent, or do you?
Both, I should imagine.
Okay.
Both. You've got a great American accent, and when I talk to my friend Kerry Wisenut, I don't know whether you've come across him yet.
I don't.
He's got Lewy bodies. He's part of the Lewy Body Association, and he has a deep South accent, and I could listen to him all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he's got the most wonderful accent.
A lot of my family is down south, and they always joke that we have the accent up here. They don't have it down there, you know. So as you're building this and spreading the word, do you recall the moment where you said, this is actually taking a hold, and actually it's going to work?
Yeah, and it was because of wonderful people like yourself in America who contacted me and said, what you're doing, basically, over the internet, so, you know, over the web. They said, what you're doing. And when I explained what we were doing and how we were doing it, they'd never heard the likes of it before. And they said, well, could we do it? I said, you can do it. And he said, all you've got to do is replicate what we do. You can do it your way. I don't want you to become a clone of us because we're all different people. I said, but what I'd like you to do is take the Purple Angel ethos forward and take it to America. And that's what happened. And Kathy Brogger started the Purple Angel Cities in America. And I think it was at that point when about 8 or 9 American cities, which I could not recall at the moment offhand, contacted me and said, right, the mayor has just announced this as a Purple Angel City, and, you know, and I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute, you know, this is getting a bit crazy, this, you know. And then France, and then a girl from Nigeria contacted us and said, we'd like to open a memory cafe. And we opened the very first memory cafe in Nigeria.
Wow.
And that made CNN News. And I think then I thought, what's going on? You know, I'm just one guy here with a family who's got dementia, and I am no different than anybody else,
right.
You know? And I just couldn't get to grips of what was going on, and it was hard. But thankfully, I have a team around me. My wife is an absolute stalwart. She's an absolute pillar, you know. But I have a team around me that kept my feet on the ground. And then, of course, the TV came along and the radio, and I was getting calls from BBC and people from all over the world saying, can we interview you? Because nobody had actually sat up and spoke about it like I did. But they weren't as direct. There was a few, but not many.
Yeah. And
then I found out that other people around the world were doing it. And they've been doing it a while. And then I found out that people had dementia for 20, 30 years around the world. So I was quite a newbie.
Yeah.
Even now at 16 years, I'm still quite a young one compared to some living with it 25, 30 years. So I went on an incredible learning journey, which kept my mind busy. And I think that took it off the actual awe of what was going on. And then before I knew it, we were the Purple Angel, and then we became the global Purple Angel.
Yeah.
And other countries were asking, can we do that? And of course we said yes, because it costs nothing.
Right.
Things like this cost nothing. Things like, you know, sharing information. There's too many people out there, Lance, that's very precious about what they do.
Right.
And this applies all over the world, not just in the UK, all over the world. But they're very precious about what they do. And they say, oh, no, that we do that. We're not telling what we do.
And that's the problem, right? Yeah. You know, for me, that's the problem. You know, I've heard so many people, and I've seen it myself too, but one of the most common themes whenever I talk to anybody who's doing tremendous work in this field, whether it's dementia or cancer or whatever it is, you have the big boys in the, you know, the industry, and they stick to themselves instead of all of us coming together like you did with Purple Angel. And look at what you've been able to accomplish through the way you approach this. And I want you to talk too, Norms, because, you know, we talked the other day, and I love the way you described the reason for the way the angel or your logo, the design. Explain that.
Yeah, the design, the Purple Angel. I've written 6, 7 books on dementia. Living with My Dementia, and three poetry books, which are all available on Amazon America, USA, or Amazon UK, whichever. They're available all over the world. And in those books, I always called Elaine, my wife, my angel, which she is. Because if it wasn't for Elaine, she's the one that reminds me to take the tablets. She's the one that reminds me to get dressed. She's the one that helps me, puts my shoes on, and takes me out in the car every day to get a new outlook on life. It's not always somewhere different every day, but it's just getting out and meeting different people. If it wasn't for Elaine, I wouldn't be here. So that's where the angel came from. And the purple, Jane Moore, a very, very good friend of ours, she designed the actual purple angel, the angel itself, because she's an artist. And she called it purple because apparently it's a holistic colour.
Right.
So we put the purple and the holistic together with the angel, and that's how the purple angel came about.
Yeah.
It really is. So in actual fact, it's named after my wife. Everybody.
And it's an upside down triangle too, correct?
Yeah, I learned that. When, as you said, you asked what I did, and I said I was a manager. But I didn't go in with the usual management story because I believe in ownership and responsibility. And I believe in giving staff ownership and responsibility and giving them a chance to let them think for themselves, because they're more than capable of doing. They don't need telling what to do every day, And I went in with the same thing with the Purple Angel. And what we did, you've heard of it, is in a normal corporate place, there's a triangle. And you've got the chief exec, the under managers, the assistant managers, and then you've got the people on the ground, which, if I say they're workers, they're all workers. But you know what I mean? They're the people who I call, they're on the coal face. You know what I mean? They're the ones that's dealing with it 24/7. So what we did to make sure that it was people friendly and caregiver friendly and carer friendly, we turned the triangle upside down. So the caregivers and the carers was on the top.
Mm.
They give us the ideas. They told us what really goes on in care homes and things like that. And they told us the stories on how they'd like to see change. So then we filtered that down to the area managers till eventually it got to the chief exec, and he said, what a good idea. Because half the time when these chief execs, bless them, have a good idea, by the time it's gone to the area manager, the under manager, and so on, I've always likened it to Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
You probably don't get the same idea as what you even thought about. But by turn the triangle upside down and giving the people a voice and saying, what would you change? You work in this environment. You do this 24/7, or you go to work 5 days a week. What would you do? So we listened to them.
Mm.
And we wrote these things down, and we created a booklet called A Helping Hand, which is available for free all over the world. And now care homes use that now as a training booklet, and care facilities. I just email it them and they download it, print it off, but it's been written by what I call real people.
Real people, yeah.
Yeah, it's been written by those with dementia, and it's also been written by those who have looked after people with dementia, and they've even had dementia as a job,
right?
As a full-time job as a caregiver. So who better to ask?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and it's so true. Those that are living it day to day, and the boots on the ground to see it day to day. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. We was asked by our local hospital because Torbay Hospital was the first ever dementia Purple Angel dementia aware hospital in the world, because we trained 98% of their staff up in the Purple Angel way. And they said, how would you change things? And I said, well, we started a campaign called Building Bridges. And what we did, we got all the carers from the local area to come and sit down with about 24 nurses. And they chatted. Well, the carers do things totally different to the nurses. They're highly trained, the carers, the nurses aren't. They're trained in nursing, but not in dementia.
Right.
But when we brought them both together, it was fantastic. Because they shared ideas, they shared ideals, and they also should and change practices within the hospital, because they've been taught by somebody who knows, which are the caregivers that do it 24/7.
Absolutely.
Simple ideas. The Purple Angel way is the simple way, but informative.
And that's usually the best way. The simplest is usually the best. Norm, I want to ask you a question. Now, I'm aware and I understand, and I don't know if this happens to you or not, but I want to hear how you would respond or what advice you would give if it happened to somebody. Somebody is probably watching this right now, or they're listening to us talk, and they're probably maybe questioning, this man has dementia? I mean, you're able to recall facts, figures, history. How do you explain to somebody who says, wait, there's no way he has dementia. He's very lucid and he's able to convey his thoughts and his message. Have you had that happen to you? And if not,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
How do you
call? We call them trolls in this country. I don't know what you call them, but
trolls. That's universal, Norms.
Yeah, that's universal, isn't it?
Universal.
Yeah. Well, I've had my first year, believe me, and it's been so upsetting. But I can understand why. But the way I explain it is there's more known about dementia these days. Now, I have Lewy bodies, right? Now, Lewy bodies, any consultant who knows about Lewy bodies will tell you can be lucid right up to the last day, but not all day. You can be lucid sometimes you can be lucid less sometimes. And especially at night. I suffer badly from sundowning. So at night times, I have horrific nightmares. I have horrific hallucinations. And yet the following day, you wouldn't think there was anything wrong with me. But that's part of Lewy bodies. People paint everybody with the same brush and think dementia are Alzheimer's.
Right.
Now, Alzheimer's is a totally different animal. That's where you do forget. And I always say, when I've done talks and I've said to people, how do you explain the difference, between Alzheimer's and things like that? Alzheimer's is it's like when your computer crashes and then you reboot it. In other words, your brain crashes and it reboots. But the thing is, it doesn't save the information, whereas it does on the computer. Right. So when people with Alzheimer's brain crashes and reboots, the information is not there. So you can tell them you're having steak for tea, shut down, open up, and they'll say, what we're having for tea, what we're having for tea, and we've all been through it, what we're having for tea, lots and lots of times. And they're not being rude, and they're not playing up, as they say, or being awkward. They literally have forgotten because it's crashed and come back. And that's the way I explain Alzheimer's. But with Lewy bodies, it's totally different. Lewy bodies I can be perfectly, what's normal these days, but I can be perfectly normal. But as the day goes on, and sundown is exactly what it says on my tin, as the sun goes down, as the day goes on, I get worse. Some mornings, the other morning, Elaine said to me, no, I don't remember this, but the other morning she says, I couldn't even remember how to make a cup of tea. I stood there in the kitchen going, I have no memory of that. It's like you go into a mist, like a fog. And then you come out of it and then you go back. And that's the reason why I do pick the times when I talk to people, lovely people like you, because I can only do it at certain times. I wouldn't dream of doing this at 7 o'clock. That's why I struggled a little bit last time we met, because it was getting late. And but that's the reason why people look at me and say, oh, well, he can't. And the other reason is because a lot of people aren't diagnosed early enough. So when they get told that a loved one has dementia, they're usually about 7 or 8 years down the line.
Right.
And it hasn't been noticed. So they don't think, oh, well, they've now got dementia because they can't remember anything. They can't tie the shoelaces. But they don't think, well, he's been like that. And they come thinking about it. He's probably been like that for years. But when he was like that years ago, he was okay.
Right.
And that's the other thing. And then the third thing I always explain to people is, as I've just explained, if you do what I call a deep dive on the computer, you will find people like me who's been living with dementia for years and years and years, longer years than me. So I am not unusual. And if it upsets anybody, I apologise, but I will not apologise for staying well.
Right. Nor
Why
should
should I?
right. Nor should you. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Norms, as we're wrapping up here, first, I applaud you and admire you and just have the utmost respect for you. And I just hope you have another 26 years, 16 years, 36 years of just delivering this message and the amount of help that you are providing people. I mean, I want our viewers and listeners to really realize and appreciate you started this with just a few dollars, and you were diagnosed with dementia and as a young man, 50 years old, and you decide to take that and turn it into something good, not necessarily for you, but for everyone else. And I commend you and all the applause that you deserve. But I feel like this is the biggest problem with dementia, whatever form that you've been diagnosed with. I think I've said this to you before. We encounter families every day with our company, and there is such a misunderstanding, and they are so unaware of what dementia is. One lady said, well, my mother has Alzheimer's, but no, she doesn't have dementia. Oh, no, she definitely doesn't have dementia. She only has Alzheimer's. And then you explain, well, she can't have Alzheimer's and not have dementia, but you can have dementia and not have Alzheimer's. And I think, it starts at the core principle of when they get that diagnosis and how they are left with that diagnosis. A person I have the utmost respect for here in the United States, he has a term, it's diagnose and adios. You get that diagnosis and then it's okay, best of luck to you. There's very little support, education, or resources given to these families after they get that diagnosis, and it takes people like Norms over in the UK to take this resource and give it to 65 other countries. I mean, this is something I feel like we have almost a responsibility and duty to our fellow man, regardless of where you live at or who you are, because there's millions upon millions of people dealing with this terrible disease all over the world, but they don't understand how to deal with it. If all of a sudden, Norms, you give me a beautiful model for Christmas, but I don't have the instructions of how to put it together, what am I supposed to do with it?
Exactly. And it's purely the love of a fellow man and trying to make sure that everybody receives this message. And that's why I'm so grateful to yourself, because I know this is going to go out to thousands, if not millions of people in America. And I am always here. My email is open to it. I answer every email I get. So if anybody asks you for my email, that's absolutely perfect. If anybody else wants to interview me, that's absolutely, while I can, I will.
And hopefully that's for a long, long time, Norms.
I hope so.
What, real quick, because we'll have it in the show notes, but I want to put it on the screen, especially if people are listening to this. Would you mind repeating and sharing what your email is that you want them to contact you at?
Yeah, it's Norms, and that's NORRMS. So it's NO 2 R's MS, because if you'll put one R in it, I won't get it. So it's norms@gmail.com. It's Perfect. As easy as that.
And if they want to learn more about Purple Angel, where do you want them to go?
Just simply type in Global Purple Angel. That's it. It'll come up. Okay. The website will come up. Yeah. Okay. Global Purple Angel. All the resources on there, where to contact us, all about our World Look Against Dementia that happens in many countries around the world every year. It's our 11th year this year.
That's wonderful.
So that's another thing that brings people together and celebrate people with dementia. Yeah.
Final question for today, Norms, and I'm sure we'll have many more conversations. The door is always open. So. We will. The door is always open here to have you back anytime you want. You just let us know. But let's say we didn't talk again for 5 years, and that's not going to happen, but let's pretend for a moment. We didn't talk for 5 years. Where is Purple Angel at 5 years from now?
Hopefully in 120 countries, rather than 65, And the only message I'd like to leave with is the biggest question I get asked from people all over the world is, do you believe there'll be a cure of dementia? And I say, well, yeah, it might not come in my lifetime, but I do believe there will be a cure one day, because I have to believe that.
Right.
To keep going, I have to believe that. But, Lance, the most ironic thing is, on that day, on that wonderful day, when they find a cure for dementia itself will then just become a memory.
Absolutely.
How ironic's that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I always like to leave people with that, because they'll be saying, I remember that. Do you remember when they used to forget things? It'll itself become just a memory.
Yeah. Well, Norms, I look forward to that day. I do believe it will happen at some point. I don't think I could say how long or how far, but yeah. I too have to believe that. I had a grandmother that I was almost as close to her as I was my own mother. And I just, I remember sitting in the nursing home when she lived. We ended up picking her up from her house down south, came to live with my family when I was still living at home. So I was many, many years ago. And it got to the point, though, where she did have to go into a nursing home. And I would go every day and sit for 3 or 4 hours. She lost the ability to talk, but I would just sit there, talk with her. I didn't care. But at that point, I even believed the doctors are going to fix it and turn it around. So I think, there's so many stories like that out there, like yours. And
my grandmother built me up.
Yeah.
My grandmother, for reasons I won't go into, but my grandmother actually built me up. Yeah. And when she died, and she was the most devastating moment was when she couldn't remember me.
Yeah.
And I still feel it now.
Yeah.
I remember the moment she said, "I'm sorry, who are you?" And I just, it's a feeling I never want to face again.
It's devastating. It's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. And, I think, there's so many good things that people like you are doing. And, that's why I'm always happy to support that work, because it is going to take, the more, smaller people like the Norms and, the Lori LeBays and even, like myself. I think it takes a collective unit like us to be able to reach these people who are dealing with it day in and day out, the upside down triangle, the boots on the ground.
Without sounding too dramatic, the world was built on revolution.
Yeah. Well, we know that here in the States.
Exactly. No matter where you are, the world was built by revolutions.
Yeah.
And by people like ourselves saying, no. This is how we should do it.
Right.
And that's gone on for thousands of years. So why not?
Yeah. Well, Norrm McNamara, founder of Purple Angel, thank you so much, my very dear friend.
You're more than welcome.
An open door anytime we can help you guys.
That's absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much.
Well, and for you, I'll say cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback, show ideas, or if you have questions. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms, or you can watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Norrm McNamara for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.